The crimson nebula stretched across the view screen like spilled wine, its swirling clouds illuminating the bridge of the ESS Hyperion with an otherworldly glow. Commander Rylan Nash stood with his hands clasped behind his back, studying the astronomical phenomenon that had claimed countless ships over the centuries. His dark eyes reflected the nebula's ethereal light as he contemplated their mission. "Commander, we're detecting an anomalous signal from within the nebula," Lieutenant Kai Patel announced from his station, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "It's unlike anything in our database." Nash turned to his science officer, Lieutenant Diana Blackwood, who was already analyzing the data. Her silver-streaked black hair was pulled back in a tight braid, her expression intent as she worked. "What do you make of it, Lieutenant?" "It's definitely artificial, sir," she replied, adjusting her spectral analysis. "The pattern suggests a distress beacon, but the technology, it's far more advanced than anything we've encountered." Nash felt the familiar surge of excitement that came with discovery. The Hyperion was Earth's most sophisticated deep space vessel, equipped with experimental quantum drives and advanced defensive systems. Their mission was to push the boundaries of known space, but even he hadn't expected to find signs of intelligent life in this notorious graveyard of ships. "Plot a course through the nebula, Lieutenant Patel. Lieutenant Blackwood, continue monitoring that signal. I want to know the moment anything changes." "Sir," his first officer, Commander Thea Rivers, stepped forward. Her weathered face showed concern. "The Crimson Nebula has claimed over 300 vessels in recorded history. The ionic storms alone could tear us apart." Nash nodded, acknowledging the risk. "That's why we're here, Commander. The Hyperion was built for exactly this kind of challenge." As they penetrated the outer layers of the nebula, the ship's quantum shields hummed with increased power, protecting them from the corrosive effects of the stellar gases. The bridge crew worked in focused silence, each member acutely aware that one mistake could doom them all. Hours passed as they carefully navigated through the treacherous space. The signal grew stronger, leading them deeper into the heart of the nebula. Suddenly, the sensors blared a warning. "Massive energy spike," Patel shouted. "Some kind of temporal distortion directly ahead." Before Nash could respond, the Hyperion shuddered violently. The view screen filled with blinding light, and Nash felt a sensation like his entire body was being stretched and compressed simultaneously. When his vision cleared, he found himself staring at something impossible. Hidden within the nebula was a massive structure, its architecture unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Crystalline spires rose for kilometers, connected by graceful bridges that seemed to be made of pure energy. The entire construction pulsed with an inner light, as if it were alive. "By all the stars," Blackwood whispered, her scientific detachment momentarily forgotten. "It's a city." "Life signs?" Nash asked, still trying to process what he was seeing. "Thousands," she confirmed. "But they're strange. The biological signatures don't match any known pattern." Before they could investigate further, a new alert sounded. "Multiple vessels approaching," Patel reported. "They just appeared out of nowhere." The ships that surrounded them were organic in design, their hulls seeming to ripple like liquid metal. They moved with impossible grace, taking up attack positions around the Hyperion. "Shields at maximum," Nash ordered calmly. "Open all frequencies for communication." A beam of energy suddenly engulfed the ship, but instead of weapons fire, it appeared to be some kind of scan. After a moment, a voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that seemed to shift and change even as they heard it. Gradually, the universal translator began to make sense of it. "Human vessel," the voice declared, "you have entered forbidden space. Your presence here violates ancient accords." Nash stepped forward. "I am Commander Rylan Nash of the Earth ship Hyperion. We followed a distress signal. Our intentions are peaceful." There was a pause, then, "The signal was not meant for your kind." You will leave this place or be destroyed. Sir, Blackwood interrupted urgently, I'm detecting another signal, it's coming from the surface. Someone's trying to communicate directly with us. Before Nash could respond, a new voice cut through the channel, this one filled with desperation. Please, if you can hear this, help us. The alien ships immediately opened fire, their weapons unlike anything Earth's scientists had theorized possible. The Hyperion's shields flared as Nash made a split-second decision. Patel, take us in. Rivers, prepare an landing team. Whatever's happening here, someone needs our help, and I intend to find out why. The Hyperion dove toward the Crystal City, its advanced engines and Nash's skilled crew allowing them to evade most of the alien fire. As they descended, Nash caught glimpses of conflict on the surface, explosions and energy weapons firing between different groups. Commander, Rivers protested, this could be a civil war. Starfleet protocols specifically forbid interference in internal conflicts. Nash's jaw set firmly. Those protocols assume we have intelligence about the situation. Right now, all we know is someone asked for help, and they're being attacked for doing so. I'm not going to ignore that. They landed the ship in what appeared to be a massive docking facility, currently abandoned in what looked like a hurried evacuation. Nash led the landing team himself, along with Rivers, Blackwood, and a security detail. Their atmospheric suits protected them from the unknown environment as they ventured into the Crystal City. The interior was even more remarkable than the exterior. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with life, and holographic displays floated in the air, showing information in an alien script that the universal translator was still struggling to decipher. Following the distress signal, they made their way deeper into the structure. The sounds of conflict grew louder, and they began to encounter signs of battle, scorch marks on the walls, destroyed equipment, and what appeared to be the aftermath of explosions. They rounded a corner and found themselves in the middle of a firefight. Two groups of aliens were exchanging energy blasts across a vast chamber. The aliens were humanoid but clearly not human, their skin seemed to shift colors like optical camouflage, and their movements were unnaturally fluid. One group was clearly protecting something, or someone, while the other pressed their attack with ruthless efficiency. Nash's team took cover, trying to assess the situation without getting involved. Then Nash saw her. Among the defenders was a figure different from the rest. Her skin was pale silver, almost luminescent, with patterns of light flowing beneath the surface. What looked like living crystal grew from her shoulders and crown, and her eyes glowed with an inner fire that seemed to pierce straight through him. She was fighting with desperate grace, wielding what appeared to be a staff made of pure energy. But she was wounded, Nash could see that clearly. And she was losing ground. As he watched, one of the attackers raised a weapon that hummed with ominous power. The crystalline woman was focused on another opponent, unaware of the danger behind her. Nash didn't think. He acted. He sprinted from cover, ignoring River's shout of warning. The alien weapon discharged, launching what looked like a spear of pure energy. Nash threw himself forward, colliding with the crystalline woman and pushing her aside. Searing pain exploded in his shoulder as the energy spear struck him instead of its intended target. He fell, his vision blurring, but not before he saw the look of absolute shock on the alien woman's face. The last thing he heard before consciousness fled was her voice in his mind, clear as crystal, "You cannot die, human. You have just changed the fate of galaxies." The world swam back into focus slowly, like emerging from deep water. Commander Nash found himself lying on what appeared to be a bed of living crystal, its surface pulsing with a gentle, healing warmth. The pain in his shoulder had dulled to a persistent ache, but something felt wrong. His entire body seemed to be fighting against an invisible current. "Be still," a melodious voice commanded. "The quantum poison spreads faster with movement." Nash turned his head, fighting a wave of dizziness, to find the crystalline woman sitting beside him. Up close, He could see that what he had thought was silver skin was actually a complex network of microscopic crystals, shifting and flowing like liquid mercury. Her eyes were pools of swirling energy, studying him with intense curiosity. "I am Nyralen," she said, "first daughter of the Crystal Dominion. And you, human, have complicated matters considerably." "Glad to help," Nash managed, his voice rough. "Though I usually prefer introductions before taking energy spears for someone." A sound like chiming bells echoed through the chamber, her laugh, he realized. "You are either very brave or very foolish. Perhaps both." Her expression grew serious. "The weapon that struck you was meant for me. It carries a poison that exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously. Your human physiology, it cannot adapt." "How long?" Nash asked, understanding the implication. "Without the essence of the Midnight Garden? 3 planetary rotations, perhaps less." She stood, her crystalline crown catching the light. "Which is why we must move quickly. Your crew has been contained safely, but the Shadowcast forces still hunt us. We need to reach the gardens." Nash attempted to sit up, gritting his teeth against the vertigo. "My crew comes first. I need to know they're safe." Nyralen's expression softened. "Your first commander, Rivers. She and the others are under the protection of my personal guard. But there is something you must understand." She waved her hand, and a holographic display materialized in the air between them. "This is not merely a civil conflict. The fate of multiple civilizations hangs in the balance." The display showed a vast network of crystal cities, all interconnected through what appeared to be quantum tunnels. The Crystal Dominion has stood for millennia as guardians of technological and biological advancement. We shepherd younger races, guiding them toward enlightenment when they are ready. But there are those who believe we should rule instead of guide. "The Shadowcast," Nash supplied. Nyralen nodded. "They seek to weaponize our achievements, to dominate rather than elevate. They struck now because I had just returned from observing Earth." Her eyes met his. "Your people are on the cusp of a great awakening. The choices you make in the next few centuries will ripple across galaxies. The Shadowcast wishes to ensure those choices benefit them." Nash absorbed this information, his tactical mind already analyzing implications. "And my interference? By saving my life, you have demonstrated humanity's potential for nobility beyond self-interest. It strengthens my faction's position that humanity should be allowed to develop without interference." She paused. "But first, you must survive." A distant explosion rocked the chamber, sending crystalline dust drifting through the air. Nyralen's head snapped toward the sound, her crown flaring with energy. "They've breached the outer defenses. Can you walk?" Nash forced himself to his feet, swaying slightly. "Lead the way, Your Highness." What followed was a harrowing journey through the Crystal City's lower levels. Nyralen guided them through passages that seemed to form and dissolve as they passed, using her connection to the living crystal to create paths while sealing them behind them. Nash fought against the spreading poison, each step requiring more concentration than the last. They encountered pockets of resistance, Shadowcast forces using phase-shifted weapons that could pierce the crystal walls. Nyralen proved to be a formidable fighter, her control over the crystal environment turning corridors into weapons. Nash, despite his condition, managed to disable several attackers using combat techniques the aliens had never encountered. "Your species adapts quickly," Nyralen observed after watching Nash use a Shadowcast warrior's own momentum to throw them into a crystal wall. "Most beings take years to learn to fight in variable gravity environments. Humanity's greatest strength," Nash managed between labored breaths, "is our ability to improvise." They reached what appeared to be a dead end, a solid crystal wall blocking their path. Nyralen placed her hand against it, and the crystal began to sing, a haunting melody that made Nash's teeth vibrate. The wall dissolved, revealing a sight that took his remaining breath away. The midnight garden stretched before them, a vast chamber filled with impossible flora. Plants made of living darkness twisted toward a ceiling that seemed to contain an entire galaxy. Flowers that emitted gravitational fields instead of scent bloomed in fractal patterns. And at the center, suspended in a column of pure energy, grew a single black crystal rose. The heart of midnight, Nyralen breathed. Its essence can rewrite quantum states. It can save you, but... She hesitated. The process is dangerous. No non-crystalline being has ever survived direct exposure. Another explosion, closer this time. The shadowcast forces were catching up. Nash straightened, fighting through the pain. Dying anyway, remember? Besides, I've always wanted to be the first human to do something impossible. Nyralen's expression was unreadable as she led him toward the crystal rose. You continue to surprise me, Commander Nash. Perhaps that is humanity's true greatest strength. She reached for the energy fields surrounding the rose. I should warn you, this will not be pleasant. Before she could continue, a barrage of energy weapons fire filled the chamber. Shadowcast forces had breached the garden, their weapons already targeting the crystal rose. Nyralen's hands moved in complex patterns, raising crystal barriers, but their enemies had come prepared. Phase-shifted explosives detonated, shattering her defenses. Nash saw the trajectory of another quantum poison spear, aimed not at him or Nyralen, but at the heart of midnight itself. In that split second, he understood, destroying it would not only doom him but would cripple the Crystal Dominion's ability to heal and adapt. Without conscious thought, he threw himself into its path once again. The spear struck him in the chest, and the world exploded into quantum possibilities. Nash felt himself existing across multiple realities simultaneously, each version of himself experiencing a different kind of agony. Through the kaleidoscope of pain, he heard Nyralen cry out in a language that transcended normal space. The heart of midnight pulsed, and everything changed. Nash awoke to find his body transformed. His skin had taken on a subtle crystalline sheen, catching and refracting light in impossible ways. The quantum poison that had been killing him was gone, but in its place was something entirely new, a hybrid of human and crystal physiology that had never existed before. The heart of midnight did not simply heal you, Nyralen explained, her voice filled with wonder. It adapted to your human essence and evolved. You have become something unique in all the known galaxies. They stood in a secure chamber deep within the Crystal City's core. Commander Rivers and the rest of Nash's crew had been brought there, their faces showing a mixture of relief and concern as they observed their transformed captain. The biological readings are off the charts, Lieutenant Blackwood reported, scanning Nash with her medical tricorder. Your cellular structure is maintaining quantum coherence at room temperature. It should be impossible. That seems to be happening a lot lately, Nash remarked, flexing his crystalline-enhanced fingers. He could feel the living crystal of the city now, a constant hum at the edge of his consciousness. But we have bigger concerns. The Shadowcast knew exactly where to find us in the garden. Someone had to tell them. Nyralen's expression darkened. You suspect a traitor within my court? Think about it, Rivers interjected, her tactical mind already processing the implications. They knew when you'd return from Earth. They were ready for your defenses. And they somehow breached a supposedly secret chamber. Before Nyralen could respond, a new figure entered the chamber. High Sentinel Vexthor, commander of the Crystal Dominion's defense forces, strode in with his ceremonial armor gleaming. His crystalline features were set in stern lines. My princess, he announced, bowing deeply. The Shadowcast forces have withdrawn to the outer rings. We've secured the central spires, but... He hesitated, glancing at the humans. Speak freely, Sentinel, Nyralen commanded. These humans have earned our trust. Our long-range sensors detect a massive fleet assembling beyond the nebula. The Shadowcast is calling for reinforcements. They claim you have violated the ancient accords by transforming a human into a crystal hybrid. Nash stepped forward. That wasn't her choice. I took that quantum spear voluntarily. Nevertheless, Vexthor continued, they are using it as a pretext for war. The Council of Elders is convening an emergency session. They're considering surrendering you to the Shadowcast, Princess. The revelation hung in the air like a physical weight. Nash watched as Nyralen's composed facade cracked slightly, showing a glimpse of the pressure she carried. The council cannot be trusted, a new voice declared. Everyone turned to see Nyralen's chief advisor, Lady Kairval, entering the chamber. Her crystal form was darker than most, with deep purple undertones that seemed to absorb light. They've been compromised for years. Careful, Lady Kairval, Vexthor warned. Such accusations against the council are treason? Kairval laughed bitterly. The real treason is how they've allowed the Shadowcast to infiltrate our highest levels of government. Why do you think we've been losing ground across the galaxy? Why have our efforts to guide younger races been failing? Nash felt a sudden shift in the crystal resonance around them. Something was wrong. His newly enhanced senses were screaming warnings, but he couldn't pinpoint why. Nyralen must have felt it too. Her crown began to pulse with energy. Lady Kairval, you seem very well informed about the Shadowcast's activities. Of course I am, Kairval replied, her form beginning to shift and darken further. I've spent centuries watching you squander our civilization's potential. The Crystal Dominion could rule the galaxy, shape the destiny of every race. Instead, we hide in our nebula, playing guardian to lesser beings. The betrayal hung in the air for a moment before chaos erupted. Kairval's crystalline form exploded outward in deadly shards as hidden Shadowcast agents materialized throughout the chamber. Energy weapons fire filled the air as Nash's crew dove for cover. But Nash and Nyralen moved as one, their shared crystalline nature allowing them to act in perfect synchronization. Nash found he could channel energy through his transformed body, creating shields of solidified light. Nyralen's powers, amplified by the chamber's crystal matrix, turned the very walls into weapons. The battle was intense but brief. The Shadowcast agents, though well prepared, hadn't counted on Nash's hybrid abilities or the enhanced connection between him and their princess. When it was over, Kairval lay trapped in a prison of her own crystalline essence, her dark form pulsing with contained energy. You've doomed us all, she spat. The Shadowcast fleet will reduce this city to atoms. The council will surrender rather than fight. Everything we've built will be lost. You're wrong, Nash declared, stepping forward. His crystalline features caught the light, creating patterns that danced across the chamber walls. You forgot something fundamental about humanity. And what's that? Kairval sneered. We specialize in changing the rules. He turned to Nyralen. Your Highness, I have a proposal. One that might save both our civilizations, but it breaks about a dozen of your ancient accords. Nyralen's eyes met his, and he saw understanding dawn in their depths. Speak, Commander Nash. I believe we're well past worrying about ancient laws. As Nash outlined his plan, he could feel the quantum possibilities shifting around them. The future was crystallizing into something entirely new, not just for the Crystal Dominion or Earth, but for every race in the galaxy. The real question was whether they were ready for what would come next. The quantum communications chamber hummed with energy as Nash stood before the holographic projection of Earth's Security Council. His crystalline enhanced form drew gasps from the assembled leaders, but he pressed on with his proposal. The Crystal Dominion possesses technology centuries beyond ours, he explained, but they lack something we have in abundance: adaptability. The Shadowcast believes humanity is a threat because we're unpredictable. I say we prove them right. Nyralen stepped forward, her presence commanding even through the quantum projection. My people have watched humanity for centuries, guiding from afar. But Commander Nash has shown us that perhaps we should have been learning instead. The plan was audacious. The Hyperion would signal Earth's newly completed quantum fleet, bringing them through previously unknown corridors in spacetime that only the Crystal Dominion could navigate. Meanwhile, Crystal technology would be temporarily shared with Earth's ships, creating a hybrid force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. High above the Crystal City, the Shadowcast fleet grew larger by the hour. Their dark ships blotted out the nebula's crimson light, a gathering storm of destructive power. But they didn't attack, they were waiting for something. They're waiting for the Council's surrender, Vexthor explained during a strategy session. They believe their agent's work has weakened our resolve. He gestured to where Kearval remained imprisoned, her dark crystal form pulsing with barely contained rage. Then let's use that overconfidence against them, Commander Rivers suggested. She had adapted quickly to working with the Crystal Warriors, her tactical experience blending well with their ancient strategies. If they're expecting surrender, they won't be prepared for an attack. Nash nodded, feeling the quantum energies flowing through his transformed body. The merger of human and crystal physiology had given him unique insights into both cultures. We need to move fast. Lieutenant Blackwood, how are the modifications to our quantum drives coming? The crystal engineers are incredible, Blackwood replied, her scientific excitement barely contained. They're not just improving our technology, they're teaching us to think about physics in completely new ways. The drive modifications will be ready in 6 hours. Nyralen approached Nash, her crystal crown pulsing in sync with the energy patterns flowing through his body. Their shared resonance had grown stronger, creating a connection that transcended normal communication. The Council is still divided, she said privately. Many fear this alliance will destroy our way of life. They're not entirely wrong, nothing will be the same after this. Change isn't always destruction, Nash replied. Sometimes it's evolution. He turned to face her fully. Your people have carried the burden of guardianship alone for too long. Let humanity share that weight. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden shift in the city's energy. Warning crystals flared to life throughout the chamber as Vexthor rushed in. Princess. The Shadowcast, they're powering up their main weapons array. They're done waiting. The first barrage struck the city's outer shields, the impact sending tremors through the crystalline structure. Nash felt the attack through his enhanced senses, the quantum harmonics of the weapons designed to shatter the very molecular bonds of the crystal technology. They're trying to force the Council's hand, Nyralen realized. If they can breach our defenses before Earth's fleet arrives, then we'll have to hold them off, Nash declared. He turned to Rivers. Commander, get back to the Hyperion. Begin the drive modifications immediately. Lieutenant Patel, start calculating jump coordinates with the Crystal Engineers. The rest of you, battle stations. As his crew rushed to their assignments, Nash faced Nyralen. Your Highness, I need you to teach me everything you can about crystal combat techniques. In about 5 hours, we're either going to make history or become a cautionary tale about the dangers of changing too much too fast. What followed was an intensive crash course in crystal warfare. Nash's hybrid physiology allowed him to grasp concepts that should have taken years to master. He learned to channel quantum energies through his transformed body, to create weapons and shields from solidified light, to extend his consciousness through the crystal matrix of the city itself. The Shadowcast's attack intensified, their weapons growing more desperate as they failed to break through the city's defenses. But Nash could feel the strain on the shield network, they couldn't hold out forever. In the primary defense chamber, Nash and Nyralen coordinated with Crystal Warriors and human crew members who were rapidly learning to work together. The humans' creative tactical suggestions combined with the Crystal's advanced technology in ways neither side had imagined possible. Energy spike. Blackwood shouted from her station. They're bringing something big through quantum space. The view screen showed a massive vessel emerging from a tear in reality, a planet-killer-class ship that seemed to absorb light itself. The Void Hammer, Vexthor breathed. They actually built it. That weapon can crack a planet's core. Nash felt Nyralen's fear through their resonance, but also her determination. The Crystal City's defenses would never withstand a direct hit from such a weapon. Everything they had worked for, all their hopes for a new future, hung by a thread. But then Nash felt something else through the crystal network, a familiar quantum signature. His transformed senses could detect it long before the instruments. "Lieutenant Blackwood," he called out, a smile playing at his lips. "Check the long-range scanners. I believe Earth's fleet has arrived early." The chamber erupted in activity as confirmation came through. Emerging from precisely calculated quantum corridors came the combined forces of humanity, 12 quantum drive ships, each one now enhanced with crystal technology thanks to the modifications shared through the Hyperion. All ships reporting crystal integration successful. River's voice came through the comm, ready to execute on your order, Commander. Nash turned to Nyralen, extending his hand. "Shall we show the galaxy what our peoples can do together?" Nyralen's crystal crown flared with energy as she took his hand. "Let us rewrite the future, Commander Nash." Together, they began channeling power through the city's crystal matrix, preparing for a battle that would change the course of galactic history. The Void Hammer loomed before them, but neither human nor crystal warrior showed fear. They had something stronger than advanced weapons or ancient technology. They had hope. The void between stars became a battlefield of light and shadow. Earth's quantum fleet, enhanced with crystal technology, moved with unprecedented coordination against the Shadowcast Armada. The human ship's unconventional tactics combined with crystal power created chaos in the enemy ranks. But the Void Hammer remained the decisive threat. Its dark hull absorbed every attack, its planet-killing weapon charging for a shot that would shatter the Crystal City's heart. Within the city's core chamber, Nash and Nyralen stood within a nexus of quantum energy. Their transformed bodies resonated with the pure crystal around them, channeling power in ways neither civilization had attempted before. "The Council of Elders approaches," Vexthor announced, his usual stoic demeanor shaken by the battle raging above. The council materialized in the chamber, their ancient crystal forms radiating disapproval. First Elder Xyrix stepped forward, his voice heavy with the weight of millennia. "Princess Nyralen, you have broken our most sacred laws. You have shared our technology with an unproven race. You have allowed our very essence to be merged with human biology. And now you propose an even greater heresy?" "I propose survival," Nyralen responded, her crown flaring. "Look around you, First Elder. While you cling to ancient laws, the Shadowcast prepares to destroy everything we've built. Humanity has shown us another way." Nash felt the quantum resonance shift as the Void Hammer's weapon reached full power. Through the crystal network, he could sense the fear of both humans and crystal beings throughout the city. "Your laws exist to protect your civilization," Nash addressed the council, his hybrid form commanding attention. "But protection without adaptation is stagnation. The Shadowcast isn't wrong about change coming, they're just wrong about it being a threat." A massive impact rocked the city. Above, the human fleet was taking heavy losses to keep the Shadowcast forces from achieving a clear shot at the city. Commander River's voice crackled through the comm, "We can't hold them much longer." The First Elder studied Nash, seeing how the crystal had merged with his human form. "You propose we take this evolution further? To merge our civilizations not just in battle, but in essence?" "The Heart of Midnight didn't just heal me," Nash explained. "It showed me a possibility, a future where humanity's adaptability and your ancient wisdom create something entirely new. But we have to choose it. Together." Another impact, closer this time. Warning crystals flashed throughout the chamber as the void hammer moved into final firing position. Nyralen stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of generations. The time of hiding in our nebula, only watching the galaxy evolve, has ended. If we survive today, it will be because we chose to evolve with it. The council members communicated in rapid pulses of crystal energy. Above them, the battle reached its crescendo. The void hammer's primary weapon began its firing sequence, dark energy coursing along its hull. Finally, First Elder Xyrix nodded. Do what must be done. Nash and Nyralen moved as one, their resonance guiding them. The crystal matrix of the entire city hummed with building power as they enacted their desperate plan. Every crystal being in the city, from the eldest council member to the youngest warrior, felt the call and responded. Through their shared connection, Nash sent a message to the human fleet: all ships, fall back to quantum corridor coordinates. Prepare for crystal convergence. The human ships executed a perfectly synchronized retreat, their crystal-enhanced drives leaving trails of quantum fire. The Shadowcast fleet pressed forward, believing victory was within their grasp. In the core chamber, Nash and Nyralen began the transformation. Their bodies became pure energy, merged with the crystal matrix itself. The entire city followed, its physical form dissolving into a quantum state that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The void hammer fired its planet-killer weapon, but its target was no longer there. Instead, the crystal city had become a quantum storm, a swirling vortex of crystalline energy that encompassed the human fleet as well. Through this storm, Nash and Nyralen's combined consciousness reached out. They touched every crystal being, every human crew member, binding them together in a network of shared purpose. The crystalline energy merged with human quantum drives, creating a cascading reaction that spread through space itself. The Shadowcast fleet found themselves trapped in a crystallizing quantum field. Their ships, their weapons, even their bodies began to transform. But unlike Nash's violent transformation, this change was controlled, guided by the combined wisdom of two civilizations. When reality stabilized, everything had changed. The Crystal City had reformed, but now it existed in quantum harmony with the human ships around it. The Shadowcast fleet hung motionless, their dark ships now shot through with veins of living crystal. In the core chamber, Nash and Nyralen reformed their physical bodies, forever changed by what they had experienced. Around them, the council members stared in wonder at readings that showed the quantum resonance now connecting not just their city, but spreading throughout the galaxy. What have we done? First Elder Xyrix whispered. We've evolved, Nyralen answered. The crystal network now extends through the quantum corridors themselves. Distance means nothing. Knowledge, culture, wisdom, everything can be shared. And the Shadowcast? Commander Rivers asked through the now crystalline communication system. They're part of the network too, Nash explained, feeling the transformed enemies through the quantum resonance. Their fear of change has been replaced by understanding. They've experienced directly what we all now know: the future belongs to those who face it together. In the days that followed, both civilizations began to understand the full implications of what had occurred. The crystal technology that had once been jealously guarded now formed the backbone of a new quantum internet, connecting worlds and species across the galaxy. Human adaptability and creativity flourished with access to ancient crystal wisdom, while the Crystal Dominion found itself energized by human innovation. Standing in the newly formed Crystal Human Council chamber, Nash and Nyralen watched ships from a dozen worlds arrive through the quantum corridors, each seeking to understand and join the new galactic civilization being born. Was this your plan all along? Nash asked her privately through their resonance. To force such complete change? Nyralen's crystal crown sparkled with amusement. I planned to save my people. You planned to prove humanity's worth. Together, we did something neither of us imagined possible. She turned to face him, her crystalline features softening. That's the true legacy of our peoples, Nash. Not just surviving change, but embracing it. Creating it. Becoming it. Above them, the Crimson Nebula continued its eternal dance, but now its light played across crystal ships of human design and human ships with crystalline hearts. Within its swirling clouds, two civilizations had become something new, something that would light the way for others to follow. The future, like the nebula itself, was both beautiful and unknown. But now they would face it together, their shared legacy written in the stars themselves.